So for our notes today, what we're learning is how to solve a system by graphing. So far, you've already learned how to solve by elimination and substitution, but we can use the graphing option as well. And it's pretty self-explanatory and pretty straightforward, mostly because we're going to be using Desmos quite a bit. But a real quick way to visualize our three options is we can have what we're used to. What we're used to is when we have two lines that intersect with each other like this. And we kind of previewed this earlier in the year, but early in the unit, but where those two lines intersect, that's our one solution. So our first option is we can have one solution, right? And that's simply going to be the x y coordinate where those two lines intersect. But what happens if you have two lines that, when you graph them, go side by side? In this case, they are parallel to each other. So our second option here is we could have two lines that are parallel to one another. And when they're parallel to each other, they're not actually intersecting at all. So if they're not intersecting at all, that means that our solution is that there is none. So we have no solution. So I'm just going to say no soul there. So we have no solution if they don't intersect at all. The last option is kind of silly, but it's really basically when you have two lines. Let's just graph one there, and then watch very carefully. I'm going to graph another one, but it's actually going to be right on top of the original one. So sometimes you have two equations that look different, but they're just in different forms. And so when that happens, what this is called is they're really actually just the same line, right? They're really just the same line. And so if they are really just the same line, then in this particular case, you have an infinite number of solutions. You have an infinite solutions. Oops, I don't know how to spell infinite, as always. So you have an infinite number of solutions because they're technically intersecting everywhere, and so because they're intersecting everywhere, we have an infinite number of solutions. Those are our three different types of possible solutions when we're graphing. So visually, that's what it's going to look like. Let's jump in and do a practice problem here real quick. And some of these you can do by hand, but we're going to start using Desmos here in just a second. I'm going to do these first couple by hand because it's really easy. So my first one here I'm going to do in green. I intersect at +2. I go up 1 and over 2, up 1 and over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So you want to try and be as accurate as possible. I already missed a little bit there. So let's try this again. And you're going to see why it's important to be as accurate as possible, because if you're not accurate, you're going to see they're not going to intersect as they're supposed to. So when we graph our first line there, this one's doing by hand. Let's go with this one here is -2. So we're starting down here at -2, but my slope is 3. So we go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1 again. You can already see that right there, I'll do one more point just so we have it. That right there was our point of intersection, where those two lines intersected. So put an extra point right there. That's our solution, and that happens to be the point 2. So we were right here at 2, and we were up to 4. So 2 comma 4 is my solution for that system. So we're looking for where these two lines intersect and uh, cross each other. That's going to be the solution to our system. So let's just keep trying. These are really pretty basic. I'm going to use Desmos this time. I know our favorite. And we can just type these in exactly as we see them, and we're going to be able to actually just click. So y equals 2x plus 4. Second equation, y equals x plus 2. So when we do that and we look at our graph over here to the right hand side, you can see that our graph is actually intersecting. Our two lines are intersecting. As long as you click on one of those lines, the gray dot where they intersect is going to pop up. So you can see I just clicked on it. I'm just clicking on it, and it turns that point on and off. So right away I can already see that my solution here is -2, 0. So you should be able to graph lines like that by hand, but Desmos starts to make it really quick and really easy for us to see that where they intersect is going to be that solution. All right, let's try another. This one's not quite as clean because they're not both in y equals mx plus b form. So if we're going to graph this one, we need to type that first one in. We'll delete the ones that are here. And the good thing about Desmos is Desmos doesn't care what form you type it in. So if I type y minus x equals 2, it can still graph it for you. It doesn't have to be slope-intercept form. Those old calculators, it had to be a slope-intercept form. Y equals 1 over 2. Make sure you leave the denominator there. Notice I use my arrow key to leave the denominator. X plus 1. So you can follow along with me here. But when I graph both of those, what do you notice? If you notice, it kind of doesn't look like they're both there, but they are. Because I'm going to turn this black one off, and the purple one's right underneath it. So they're actually just right on top of each other. They're right on top of each other. So since they're right on top of each other, let's graph that real fast on our actual graph. You crossed here at positive 1, and we're going up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So they're really, the two lines are actually right on top of each other. And so our solutions is we have an infinite. We have an infinite number of solutions. Okay? So our last option, you probably guess what it's going to be. I'll do this one by hand. Positive 2, up 2 over 1. So we're going to have our slope and our line looks like that. Oh, I did a terrible job. But the second one, down here at negative 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1 again, you can see that our lines in this case, those are parallel. And so because they're parallel, we have no solution at all. So this is just a really brief lesson today to make sure you understand how we can use Desmos to graph and understand the difference between one solution, no solution at all, and an infinite number of solutions. So what I want us to do with the rest of your time is I'm going to do one or two of these examples here, but I want you guys to try some of these word problems before you jump on the homework today. All right, so I'm going to do two examples, and then you guys are going to jump on your homework on Canvas.